Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Arglefumph Talks, the sort of series where I answer questions. Today I'm answering a specific question, which is, Michael, do you collect anything? And I do collect things. One of the things I collect is antique books, like old books. I don't think you can really see it. So I thought it would be fun for me to pick out one of these old books and read it to you. I decided to pick one which is extremely short. I don't know if you can see it here. Cinderella from the Christmas Stocking Stuffer series. Let's see what date it was. 1905. This is a very old book from the Christmas Stocking Stuffer series. Basically, I guess people would buy these small books because they fit easily inside somebody's Christmas stocking. And it has an introduction from L. Frank Baum, who wrote the Wizard of Oz books. So that's why I got this. I was like, whoa, the guy who wrote Wizard of Oz also wrote a Cinderella? I thought that was amazing. And no, he didn't write Cinderella. He wrote the introduction, which is about 2 pages. But I'm sure the story will be interesting. People are always saying that the old version of Cinderella is so much more interesting than, say, the Disney version, which would have been made about 45 years later. So let's read it. Let's see if these versions are, in fact, different from each other. Okay, so Cinderella, 1905, written by some sort of anonymous author. Yeah, we don't have any author listed, but hey, look, there's Cinderella. Once upon a time there lived a noble gentleman who had one dear little daughter. Poor child! Her own kind mother was dead, and her father, who loved her very dearly, was afraid that his little girl was sometimes lonely. So he married a grand lady who had 2 daughters of her own, and who, he thought, would be kind and good to his little one. But no sooner did the stepmother enter her new home than she began to show her true character. Her stepdaughter was so much prettier and sweeter than her own children that she was jealous of her, and gave her all of the hard work of the house to do, whilst the 2 proud sisters spent their time at pleasant parties and entertainments. We've got a picture here. So it's sort of looking like Cinderella's father is a very bad judge of character, you know. He thought it was a grand lady, but she was a horrible lady. The only pleasure the poor child had was to spend her evenings sitting in the chimney corner, resting her weary limbs, and for this reason her sisters mockingly nicknamed her Cinderella. That doesn't seem very pleasurable. She just got to sit in the corner? Poor Cinderella. The sisters' fine clothes made Cinderella feel very shabby, but in her little torn frock and ragged shoes she was 1,000 times more lovely than they. Okay, why isn't her father doing anything? Why is he not dressing up his daughter in fine clothing? Seriously, Cinderella's dad, not good. I'm not liking him. In the Disney version, as you probably know, her parents are both dead, but it looks like in this version her dad is there, but he just doesn't care. I feel bad for Cinderella. Oh, this must be her on the cover, too, because that's clearly her losing her glass slipper. Now it chanced that the king's son gave a grand ball, to which he invited all the lords and ladies in the country, and among the rest Cinderella's 2 sisters were asked. How pleased and excited they were when the invitation arrived! For days they could talk of nothing but the clothes they should wear, and the grand folk they hoped to meet. When at last the great day arrived, Cinderella was kept busy running about, decking the sisters and dressing their hair. I presume decking the sisters means dressing them up rather than, like punching them in the face or something. Although I don't blame her if she hit them, because don't you wish you were going to the ball? Said one of them. Uh-oh, everybody, we've got missing pages here. It goes straight from page 14 to 17. No wonder I got this for so cheap. Okay, let's just guess that the stepsisters were mean to Cinderella, and, of course, her father did nothing because he's a big, lazy jerk. Cinderella went back to her chimney corner and tried not to feel envious, but the tears would gather in the pretty eyes and trickle down the sorrowful little face. "What are you crying for, child?" cried a silvery voice. Cinderella started and raised her eyes. Who could it be? Then, in a moment, she knew. It was her fairy godmother! Whoa, check out this picture here. Okay, if I was Cinderella, I'd be a little scared. This fairy godmother is looking kinda scary. Gotta be honest. Although, can't be much worse than her father. I do so want, began Cinderella. Then her sobs stopped her. To go to the ball, finished the godmother. Cinderella nodded. Well, leave off crying. Be a good girl, and you shall go. Run quickly into the garden, and bring the largest pumpkin you can find. Cinderella could not imagine how a pumpkin could help her go to the ball, but her only thought was to obey her godmother. Well, I guess that makes sense because she's a fairy, but this is sort of just a random stranger who showed up. Okay. In a few moments she was back again with the splendid pumpkin. Her godmother scooped out the inside, one touch of the wand, and the pumpkin was a golden coach lined with white satin. Nice! Nice. Okay, so the godmother is trustworthy. She is magical. Now, godchild, quick! The mousetrap from the pantry! And here's the picture of the mousetrap. Okay, why do we need a mousetrap? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Here it is, godmother, said Cinderella breathlessly. One by one, 6 fat, sleek mice passed through the trap door. Oh, it's that kind of mousetrap. Oh, okay, I thought it was the one which killed mice. It's like, why do you want dead mice? That's kind of weird. Anyway, here's another picture of the fairy godmother. Cinderella and her fairy godmother. What are they looking at? They're looking at like a pillow. Really, they're really looking at a pillow. Okay. So the mice appeared. As each appeared, a touch of the wand transformed it into a cream-colored horse, fit for a queen. Now, Cinderella, can you find a coachman? There is a large gray rat in the rat trap. Would he do, godmother? Run and fetch him, child, and then I can judge. So Cinderella ran to fetch the rat. She doesn't know any other guys. I mean, you'd think she would know somebody. She just resorts to the rat. Okay. Cinderella ran to fetch the rat, and her godmother said he was just made for a coachman. And I think you would have agreed with her had you seen him a moment later, with his powdered wig and silk stockings. Okay, so I shouldn't have disagreed, because I totally would have agreed with her. 6 lizards from behind the pumpkin frame became 6 footmen in splendid liveries. You would have thought they had been footmen all their lives. Cinderella was so excited she could scarcely speak. Oh, godmother, she cried, it is all so lovely. Then suddenly she said, where were you for the past several years while I've been treated like crud by my evil stepsisters? I've been somewhere else, the godmother. No. Okay, she wasn't being mean to the godmother. I need to stop making fun of the story and actually read the story. Oh, godmother, she cried, it is all so lovely. Then suddenly she thought of her shabby frock. There is my white muslin, she said wistfully. Do you think? But before Cinderella could realize what was happening, her godmother's wand tapped her lightly. In place of the shabby frock, there was a gleam of satin, silver, and pearls. She is decked out, everybody. Cinderella is dressed up nicely, I should say. Ah, who can describe a robe made by the fairies? It was as white as snow, and as dazzling. Round the hem hung a fringe of diamonds, sparkling like dewdrops in the sunshine. The lace around the throat and arms could only have been spun by fairy spiders. Surely it was a dream. Cinderella put her daintily gloved hand to her throat and softly touched the pearls that encircled her neck. Come, child, said the godmother, or you will be late. As Cinderella moved, the firelight shone upon her dainty shoes. They are of diamonds, she said. No, answered her godmother, smiling. They are better than that. They are made of glass, made by the fairies. And now, child, go and enjoy yourself to your heart's content. Only remember, if you stay at the palace one instant after midnight, your coach and servants will vanish, and you will be the little gray Cinderella once more. I'm starting to question this. Why can't the godmother provide more long-lasting help? I mean, it's nice that she's helping out Cinderella, but she's really only helping her out for, say, a couple of hours, and then her life goes back to being horrible. You really think the godmother would do more? And where is Cinderella's father in all this? I don't know where he is. Anyway, this is her arriving at the ball. Wow, that is fancy. Wow, okay. Cinderella. A few moments later, the coach dashed into the royal courtyard. Just like this. Here's the coach. It's dashing. And the door was flung open, and Cinderella alighted. As she walked slowly up the richly carpeted staircase, there was a murmur of admiration, and the king's son hastened to meet her. "Never," said he to himself, "have I seen anyone so lovely." He led her into the ballroom, where the king, who was much taken with her sweet face and pretty, modest manners, whispered to the queen that she must surely be a foreign princess. Totally. So this is, I imagine her or him at the dinner. I can't really see. I think that's him, but those striped pants don't really. Yeah, it's got to be him, because you know what? Cinderella looks nice. Those striped pants, not so good. Cinderella, you might want to think about trying a different Prince Charming, somebody with fashion sense. The evening passed away in a dream of delight, Cinderella dancing with no one but the handsome young prince, and being waited on by his own hands at supper time. Oh, the prince waited on her. Nice. That's a nice change of pace. You know, she's used to being the servant, and now the prince is serving her. The two sisters could not recognize their ragged little sister in the beautiful and graceful lady, to whom the prince paid so much attention, and felt quite pleased and flattered when she addressed a few words to them. "Oh, that's nice. You know, if I was Cinderella, I might, rub it in their faces, because they were certainly rubbing it in her face, but Cinderella's better than that." Presently, a clock chimed the 11:15, and remembering her godmother's warning, Cinderella at once took leave of the prince, and jumping into her coach, was driven rapidly home. Here she found her godmother waiting to hear all about the ball. Ooh, wow, nice. You know, in the Disney version and all the other versions I've seen, the godmother just disappears as soon as she performs the magic spell, but it looks like the godmother is actually making a second appearance. Cool. So here she found her godmother waiting to hear all about the ball. "It was lovely," said Cinderella, "and oh, godmother, there is to be another tomorrow night, and I should so much like to go to it." "But what about the glass slipper? I thought she ran away at midnight with the glass slipper. This is a different version of the story." "Then you shall," replied the kind fairy, and kissing her godchild tenderly, she vanished. When the sisters returned from the ball, they found a sleepy little maiden sitting in the chimney corner, waiting for them. "How late you are!" cried Cinderella, yawning. "Are you not very tired?" "Not in the least," they answered, and then they told her what a delightful ball it had been, and how the loveliest princess in the world had been there, and had spoken to them, and admired their pretty dresses. I wonder what the stepmother thinks about this. We haven't heard from her in a while. Is she okay with her daughters being out past midnight? I mean, her daughters are going out partying every single night past midnight. I'd be a little worried. "Who was she?" asked Cinderella, slyly. "That we cannot say," answered the sisters. "She would not tell her name, though the prince begged her to do so." "Dear sister," said Cinderella, "I too should like to see the beautiful princess. Will you not lend me your old yellow gown, that I may go to the ball tomorrow with you?" "What?" cried her sister angrily. "Lend one of my dresses to a little cinder maid? Don't talk nonsense, child." "Well, she is your sister. You could be a little bit nicer." The next night, the sisters were more particular than ever. Whoa, missed my page. Sort of the problem with these small little pages. You can clearly see the book is much smaller than my hand. It's a tiny book. The next night, the sisters were more particular than ever about their attire, but at last they were dressed, and as soon as their carriage had been driven away, the godmother appeared. Once more she touched her godchild with her wand, and in a moment she was arrayed in a beautiful dress. So this is kind of an odd picture. I don't know what's going on here. We have the fairy godmother and the two stepsisters. I don't really see Cinderella in this picture, unless there are two Cinderellas? What's going on here? Somebody explain. This story is so confusing here. Once more, she touched her godchild with her wand, and in a moment she was arrayed in a beautiful dress that seemed as though it had been woven of moonbeams and sunshine. Ooh, nice. So radiantly did it gleam and shimmer. You know, usually you have a dress made of moonbeams or a dress made out of sunshine, but not both at the same time. That's how you know this is a great dress. She put her arms round her godmother's neck and kissed and thanked her. Goodbye, childie. Ooh, they spelled childie, Childie. Kind of an interesting way of spelling childie, but it's an old book. I would spell it with a Y. Enjoy yourself, but whatever you do, remember to leave the ball before the clock strikes 12, the godmother said, and Cinderella promised. But the hours flew by so happily and so swiftly that Cinderella forgot her promise, until she happened to look at a clock and saw that it was on the stroke of 12. Okay, so here's a picture of Cinderella with, I imagine, the prince or a homeless person who's asking her for money. Yeah, let's say that it's either the prince or she's being nice and giving money to a homeless person. Way to go, Cinderella. With a cry of alarm, she fled from the room, dropping in her haste one of the little glass slippers. She dropped a slipper? Was she carrying it in her hand? But with the sound of the clock strokes in her ears, she dared not pick it up. The prince hurried after her in alarm, but when he reached the entrance hall, the beautiful princess had vanished, and there was no one to be seen but a forlorn little beggar maid, creeping away in the darkness. That's interesting. So the prince sees the real Cinderella for a little bit, but figures, she's just some poor cinder maid. Okay. Poor little Cinderella! She hurried home through the dark streets, weary and overwhelmed with shame. The fire was out when she reached her home, and there was no godmother waiting to receive her. Godmother! What happened there? But she sat down in a chimney corner to await her sister's return. When they came in, they could speak of nothing but the wonderful things that had happened at the ball. The beautiful princess had been there again, they said, but had disappeared just as the clock struck 12. And though the prince had searched everywhere for her, he had been unable to find her. He is quite beside himself with grief, said the elder sister, for there is no doubt he hoped to make her his bride. Cinderella listened in silence to all they had to say, and slipping her hand into her pocket, she felt that one remaining glass slipper was safe, for it was the only thing of all her grand apparel that remained to her. Wonder why the slipper remained, everything else changed except the slipper. It's kind of odd. I would have kept the dress, which was made out of sunshine and moonbeams. Come on. Best dress ever. On the following morning, there was a great noise of trumpets and drums, and a procession passed through the town, at the head of which rode the king's son. I guess we don't call him a prince, we call him the king's son. Behind him came a herald, bearing a velvet cushion, upon which rested a little glass slipper. And here is Cinderella trying on the slipper. I think I know what's going to happen next. Cinderella is the only size 8 in the kingdom, so obviously the slipper has to belong to her, so that's how he knows she is the beautiful princess. The herald blew a blast upon the trumpets, and then read a proclamation saying that the king's son would wed any lady in the land who could fit the slipper upon her foot, if she could produce another to match it. Okay, good. That's something that sort of bugged me about the, Disney version of Cinderella. It's like, well, what if there's another woman in the town who wears a size 8 slipper? That woman could totally have just put her foot inside the slipper and said, hey, I'm the princess. But here they're actually forcing her to produce the other slipper, so that's smarter. Of course, the sisters tried to squeeze their feet into the slipper, but it was of no use. They were much too large. They have big feet. You think the prince would recognize them from the ball, though, and say, hey, this is not the princess, but whatever. Then Cinderella shyly begged that she might try. How the sisters laughed with scorn when the prince knelt to fit the slipper on the cinder maid's foot. But what was their surprise when it slipped on with the greatest ease, and the next moment Cinderella produced the other from her pocket. Once more she stood in the slippers, and once more the sisters saw before them the lovely princess who was to be the prince's bride. for at the touch of the magic shoes, the little gray frock disappeared forever, and in the place of it, she wore the beautiful robe the fairy godmother had given to her. All right! Well, looks like the sisters are now apologizing to Cinderella because they were such jerks. Cinderella's father and mother, well, her mother's dead, but Cinderella's father and stepmother are nowhere to be found, of course, because they're negligent parents. The sisters hung their heads with sorrow and vexation, but kind little Cinderella put her arms around their necks, kissed them, and forgave them for all their unkindness. So that they could not help but love her. Aww. No, just kidding. Cinderella actually threw them in the dungeon, and they had to suffer in the dungeon for the rest of their lives. No, she forgave them, because she's better than that. She's nice. The prince could not bear to part from his little love again, so he carried her back to the palace in his grand coach, and they were married that very day. Whoa, okay, they've only known each other 3 days and they're getting married. You're rushing this relationship, Cinderella. You are not being a good example for all the girls in the world. I'm sorry, Cinderella. I'm sorry. Cinderella's stepsisters were present at the feast, but in the place of honor sat the fairy godmother. So the poor little Cinder maid married the prince, and in time they came to be king and queen, and lived happily ever after. So here's them getting married. Very nice. And here ends, whoa, hold on. Here ends the story of Cinderella. Okay, so that's the story of Cinderella, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Sort of different. Yeah, very different from the Disney version. The stepmother doesn't appear at all, which is sort of interesting. That's an interesting change. The father is still alive, which is an interesting change, and it sort of begs the question of why he did nothing to help his daughter. I also have to wonder why the fairy godmother did not appear sooner, or why she did not provide more help to Cinderella, but, she's a fairy. I guess we can't really question it. She's probably on fairy business, doing, fairy things, I don't know. The wicked stepsisters were a lot meaner in the Disney version. Yeah, a lot meaner. But overall, pretty nice. I like the fact that the prince had to wait on her. The prince waited on her. Which is nice because, people are always complaining, oh, Cinderella's this horrible sexist story because Cinderella has to do traditional girly things like cook food for men and other people. But now he's cooking food for her. That's a nice little role reversal. Unless I'm misinterpreting what that means, and it just means that, he sort of just gave her a side of mashed potatoes and he didn't really do anything to serve her. In which case, you know what, Prince? You need to step it up, okay? I'm sorry. Cinderella is a catch, okay? I know Cinderella is a great woman. He obviously did not want to let her go because, he tried to marry her as quickly as possible. But I think you could try a little bit harder to, hold on to Cinderella because she is a woman worth holding on to. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's it. That's it for the story. That's it for my commentary. Hope you enjoyed Argelfumph reads Cinderella.